Hey everybody, what's up from Pokemon Classics, reminding you that the classics, like an old Nickelback song, never goes out of style. Anyway, today is a PSA returns video. Back in June of 2020, I sent out one of my largest PSA orders ever. And after almost a year, they're finally back. The cards have returned, and I'm really excited to dig into this and do an unboxing with you guys. Now, for full disclosure, many of these cards are extras for me, and I'm going to have many of them listed for sale on my eBay store. I'll leave a link down in the description down below. It is an affiliate link, so I do get a kickback, a commission from any of those sales, but definitely don't feel obligated to use that. That's not what this channel is about. What I am hoping you get from this video is an updated look at what the PSA cases look like, some information about their turnaround time, and most importantly, how their grading standards are currently being applied. Now for me, I've graded cards for a number of years. I feel pretty confident in my ability to pre-grade cards. And while most of these cards came out pretty much exactly what I was expecting, there were some surprises, and I think you guys will see what I mean. So without further ado, let's roll into this unboxing. Had to divide this into several separate videos. So for today, we're gonna start out with some of the Japanese cards, which I typically don't send to PSA, along with first edition Jungle holographics. Let's do this. All right, so let's kick this off with the Japanese CD promo cards. And I sent in some of the holographics from the set. This first one is the Venusaur, and this one actually got the PSA 10, which I was really excited for. Here's a couple close-up shots, the front and the back. And the artwork on the CD promos really is iconic. It's some of the best artwork in the game. And it really brings me back to the early days of Pokemon, particularly with the Game Boy games with Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue. And I believe Gary, King Pokemon, was one of the initiators behind getting these cards graded originally. Back on the Home Shopping Network, you could pick up these CD promos way early on in Pokemon. This one is one of my favorites though, the Charizard. Again, iconic artwork here. Definitely reminiscent of Pokemon Red. And that was the game that I grew up playing as a kid. Taking a look at the back, really clean back on this one. There was a little bit of centering on the top to the bottom, and I'm assuming that's why it didn't get the 10, but 9 is a great grade on that card. Definitely happy with that one. Now, out of this set is Blastoise, and in my personal opinion, the Blastoise is the best looking artwork. In fact, he's got the Hydro Cannon pointed right at the viewer, and I love that. It's reminiscent to me of the Dark Blastoise from the Team Rocket set. And so this one also got the 9. Really happy with that grade. It is a little bit off center as well. And it's kind of cool to see those original Japanese backs because I can't remember at what point they switched over to the newer back, but these old style ones are really awesome. Continuing with the CD promos, we get one that was released in English as Cool Porygon, but in Japanese, this was one of the CD promos. This one got the PSA 8. It's a little bit more off-center, and you can easily see that in the pictures, the close-ups here. But it's still a beautiful card nonetheless, and the holographic pattern really pops on this one. I love the holos that have the rainbow colors in them. Dragonite comes to mind, Cool Porygon comes to mind, Lugia from Neo Genesis. And so this was one that I'm not disappointed in. An 8 is still a really solid grade. Now there's one more holographic from the set that I sent in, and it's the big guy. We all know and love him as Snorlax. And so Snorlax is one that's maybe not as valuable as the big 3 in the set, but I love this one because he's just kind of sitting there, relaxed, back, friendly, waving to the audience. It's got a really childlike artwork to it as well. This one also picked up a 9, so coming pretty well on the 9s and 110. Can't complain about that. Definitely happy to have those. Generally, I don't collect Japanese cards in graded condition. I do have a pretty extensive collection of Japanese cards, and I'll probably send more in the future. But one that I did send in was this Dragonite, and I was talking about the rainbow-colored holographic pattern earlier, and this one, love the sparkle on it. Dragonite, how could you not love Dragonite? It's essentially the rookie artwork of Dragonite from the Fossil set. Obviously not as high demand as the English first edition version, but still a beautiful card. Still one that came through with a clean grade in the PSA 9. Now, I sent out 2 Dark Blastoises, and I already mentioned this, but Dark Blastoise, I think, is one of the best artworks in all of Wizard of the Coast. It's got the attack pose, it's got that Hydro Cannon we were talking about earlier, and this is one that I just love. To get a flawless copy in PSA 10 only sweetens the deal, so I was super happy about that one. And even looking at this backside, it's really clean. Now, as I mentioned, I did send in 2 of these, and so looking at the second one, not quite as well centered. This one got a 9, and 9s are a great grade. Like, no knock to the 9 collectors out there. You get some good value from a PSA 9. Looking at the back of this one, it's also incredibly clean. And you gotta love the Team Rocket cards. I know they've been doing really well lately. Going into our next card is the Dark Charizard. And what's not to love about a Charizard? If it's any kind of Charizard, English, Japanese, first edition, unlimited, you gotta send it in for grading. And so I actually had a number of these. I sent in 5 Dark Charizards. This is the first one. This one got the 9. Really clean copy. Here's the second one, also a 9. You will see a theme here that there was a number of 9s coming in from these Dark Charizards. They were all pretty clean. I was hoping that one would get the 10. There was 2 that I thought had potential for it. Centering, one of those things you can't help when you're submitting a card. So unfortunately, a lot of 9s here, but again, 9s are a great grade. I'll take that all day. Taking a look at the fourth one, this is the final of the 4 9s. Not a lot else to say. I mean, Dark Charizard, maybe not the favorite Charizard of most collectors out there, but it's still a good one. The last one took a PSA 8, which is near mint to mint, and this one you can obviously see is off-center from top to bottom. Still a really clean copy of the card, though, and I think sometimes PSA 8s get downtrodden more than they deserve, because there are still really nice cards, and condition and value go hand in hand sometimes, and if you don't want to pay a massive premium, you get an 8 from a distance. It looks almost just as good. Here's Blaine's Charizard. It's another one of our Charizards that sent in, and this one also has a little bit of centering issues. It's not real bad. Earning the PSA 9. I know the gym set was one of my favorite sets of all time. In English, it was actually divided into 2 different sets, Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge, but in Japanese, it was just one massive gym set. And so, a lot of different cards there. It's an incredibly large set. Moving into the Neo series, I decided to send in 2 Neo Genesis cards, and of course, Typhlosion 17 had to be one of them. What's not to like about Typhlosion? And that's one of those cards that has constantly eluded me for a lifetime in first edition PSA 10 from English. So I went for it. I took the stab at the PSA 10 in Japanese, and it didn't quite work out for me, but the 9, still a strong grade. Then, of course, we've got Lugia, and if there's one card you need to send out from Neo Genesis, Lugia is the one. Some of the most beautiful artwork. It's iconic. It's a card that has, well, this one has a swirl in the picture, but it's a card that served as Lugia's rookie card, basically, and that's something that has historical value to it. So excited by the 9 grade on that one. Can't complain about that. Those are all the Japanese cards from the submission, and so now we're going to switch over into the English first edition jungle cards, starting with this first edition Clefable. Now, most of these cards I knew wouldn't get 10s. I'd already sent in most of my 10-worthy cards years ago. A lot of these, though, had potential for 8s and 7s and maybe a few 9s. This Clefable got an 8, which I think is a perfectly fair grade for it. There are some surface printing issues. That's really common with any cards that you get out of the pack. Sometimes people assume that when they pull something, they're going to get a 10 or even a 9, but it's not uncommon for cards to get an 8 due to a factory print line. Next up is Electrode. I actually sent 2 of these to PSA, and the first one got a PSA 8. Really clean card. It's exactly the grade that I was expecting on my pre-grades, and so having that confirmation was reassuring. The second one coming up here also got the 8, and there's some consistency there. That wasn't unexpected. That's actually one of the things I would recommend to you guys is if you're new to submitting to PSA, before you submit them, write down your projected grades, keep track of them, and then compare that to the results that you actually get when they're shipped back to you. When you compare those, you can better understand the grading process, adjust accordingly if you're overly harsh on your cards or if you're overly generous on your cards. That's really how you get more experience with grading. So I think there's value to inspecting your cards really carefully and pre-grading. Next up, we have one for all of the Eevee and Eeveelution fans out there, and that's Flareon, one of my favorites of all a jungle set. This Flareon came back as a PSA 9, which I was hoping for, and so I was excited by this one because this is a good holographic to get. It's another one that's really beautiful. Love that card. And to continue on with the Eeveelutions, sent in a pair of Jolteons. Again, both of these are holographic, first edition. First one got a PSA 9, and that's a great grade to have on one of these cards. So I will take that all day. And this one's going up for sale because I actually already have one of those in my personal collection. Fortunately, I don't have any 10s. Thankfully, though, I do have this 8.5. And now this is where things get a little bit interesting. Generally speaking, PSA doesn't use the half grades very often. Those half numbers are more common with CGC and other grading companies like Beckett. However, PSA does not typically give these out. And one of the common themes in my order is there were a number of half grades. I think I got 25 8.5s out of 260 cards. And there's even some 7.5s in there, which I'd hardly seen in my lifetime coming into this submission. So, not sure that that's necessarily a bad thing. It is what it is. Sometimes that's how it works out. We did get this 8 Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime, not one of the most well-liked cards in the jungle set, or one of the most liked Pokemon in the original 150. I still think the card's pretty cool, though. This one, thought had the potential for an 8. There are a couple surface issues, and that came back just as expected. Next up is the second Mr. Mime, and this is the first of those 7.5 grades that I was talking about. These took me by surprise because this is a very uncommon grade to receive in a Pokemon card. I don't know if this is because of a new direction PSA is going with their grades, or if it's due to them hiring on an entirely new staff to take over with the backlog. I suspect that they have new employees working the bulk orders rather than the high value stuff. And so maybe that's the reason for some of this inconsistency with previous grades. Now again, a 7.5, it's a pretty strong grade. I can't complain about that. It's just unusual. Next up, we've got a Nidoqueen. And in the original series, Nidoking is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. So it's hard not to like Nidoqueen as well. This one got the 8, near mint to mint. You can tell that print line going down the middle right by Nidoqueen's face. Definitely holding it back from getting the 9. But again, an 8 is an underrated grade. It's one that I think is starting to develop more of a following amongst collectors as prices continue to rise and scarcity builds. Some of those lower grades like 7s and 8s that are incredibly collectible and valuable in sports cards are starting to trickle their way down into trading cards like Pokemon. Here's the second Nidoqueen. I actually sent out 2 of these. This one also received the 8. Which again, perfectly aligned with my pre-grades, so it's always reassuring to see those come back as expected. It's even better when they come back higher than expected, but I think it is validating and good to know that you're grading accurately. Next up is one of my favorite artworks personally in the jungle set, and this is Pidgeot. And here we are again with the 8.5. And I'll say it personally, as a set collector, as somebody that likes consistency, I would much rather have an 8 than an 8.5, just because it's going to be a lot easier to find all of the cards in that 8 grade and then have that numerical consistency across the board. Speaking of the 8 grade, I did get an 8 on this Pidgeot. And I actually sent 3 of these to PSA in this submission. This one's pretty nice. One of the things that's interesting with jungle is there's often chipping on the sides of the cards, and most of these have been relatively free of that chipping. The third and final one here also received the 8. Pretty clean backside too, not a lot of edge wear, and often you'll see quite a bit of edge wear on PSA 8s, but if you have any surface scratching, that's generally the calling card of an 8. Here's a 9. We got the first edition Pincer, and this is not the scratch error version. If you guys have seen my error video, there is a version of Pincer that has a little scratch right above the first edition stamp. This is your typical Pincer. It's not one of the most desired cards in the jungle set, but it's still a nice one. It's one that I think is one of the better bug Pokemon that's out there. So definitely like this one. Coming in next is our second Pincer. And here we go again with the 7.5 Near Mint Plus. I mean, this is a grade that I've seen only a handful of times in my collecting experience over a decade working with PSA. But that's all right. It's a 7.5. There is a little bit of edge wear on the left-hand side and up at the top, so that probably factored into the grade as well. I thought a 7 would have been fair. I'll take a 7.5. Now, one of my favorite Pokemon in the jungle set, and perhaps my favorite bug Pokemon of all time, is Scyther. And this was a highly playable card with no retreat cost, 70 HP, basic Pokemon, can do 30 damage, colorless energies. This card was hot back in the day. So this one's an 8. Really nice card. Going on to the next one, probably the best card, the one that you want to pull from jungle, is the big guy, Snorlax. Now, this is a tough card to grade, and in a PSA 10, really valuable. This one got the 7.5, another Near Mint Plus, and it's pretty clean. This one I was expecting a 7, hoping for an 8. 7.5, PSA seems to have split the difference with me, so that works out for me. I'm perfectly happy with that. And you know, Snorlax is one of those Pokemon that's really iconic. A lot of people out there absolutely love Snorlax. Next, we have Venomoth. Venomoth, another one of the bug Pokemon, which really is a theme for jungle. Jungle features a lot of grass type. This one gets overlooked often. It's not one of the more popular ones. This one does have a little scratch on the hollow here, but otherwise it's very clean. So I was a little bit surprised that this one didn't get at least an 8. You'll notice the backside has no edge wear whatsoever. It's a pretty nice 7.5 if I do say so myself. Again, I'm not complaining though. Overall, I'm really happy with my order, and that's the way collecting goes. It's an experience. You get cards, you appraise them yourself, you figure out which ones to send in, and it's that constant chase. And when things don't go out the way you want and you have to continue finding new cards, that's part of the game. Next up, we have another 7.5, this Victory Bell. Remember James from Team Rocket, his Victory Bell kept eating him in the anime. It's another one of those cards that goes under the radar in the jungle set. Ultimately, it is a holographic card. It is a cool Pokemon too. There's not a lot of Victory Bell cards out there in Wizards of the Coast that I can think of. Then we've got a few Vileplumes. This one got the 8.5, and this one was pretty clean. This one I thought had potential for a 9. I think on my pre-grading I put 8 to 9, so I guess 8.5 is pretty much the perfect accurate positioning of that card. But the centering on this one was really good. The back is really clean. This one I thought had potential. So I'm okay with that though. Again, the 8.5s, not personally what I'm hoping for when collecting. There is a dot of edge wear up in the corner, and what can you do? There's going to be some of that. Like I said, I wasn't expecting 10s on any of these cards, that's for sure. All right, so these last two Vileplumes are a mistake, I assume, on my part. They got 6s, and if you can see this, there's a little crease in the card, and both the Vileplumes that I sent have that same crease in the same location. Now, I'm usually incredibly vigilant about how I check over cards before I submit them, and so it seems crazy to me that I didn't notice this. I use a high-intensity light source, I move the card around, I use magnification. I'm gonna have to chalk this one up to just a mistake on my part. I guess it's possible that PSA damaged the cards, but I'm certain that's not the case. Like, this has to be on me. And one of the things that really bothers me is when people get their cards back and they blame all of the grades on PSA. And I don't want to be that person. I'm just going to chalk this up to me not being observant and sending in a couple cards that had some damage. So unfortunately, any form of crease, any form of little minuscule bend or dent, and we're not talking like full-on crease, but even the really small ones, will instantly drop the card down to a 6 at best. And so you got to watch out for those. That's why it's so important to inspect over the cards really carefully before you make that submission. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed. You're throwing your money away. Last up in this submission for part 1 was Wigglytuff. And you know, this is an iconic card as well. For me personally, it has some significance. When I first got my very first pack of Jungle, I pulled a Wigglytuff. It was a non-holo version, but because of that, this artwork has a lot of meaning and a lot of value to me. So this one, I knew would be a 7 or an 8. 7 is what I had on my pre-grade. It came in exactly at that. And so it's a good card to have. Again, even these lower value, lower tier grades like 7s and 8s are kind of developing their own price line and their own niche. So anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for part 1 of my PSA submission. There's going to be more videos going over the other cards that I received. Again, there's a whole bunch of them that I had to split this up into multiple videos and to give the cards the attention that they deserve. These are vintage cards. These are cards that have been with me for a long time, and I don't want to overlook them. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the cards down in the comments below. What do you think specifically about those half grades, those 8.5s and 7.5s? It's a little disappointing to me, but overall, I'm super happy. I find myself grateful just to receive my cards back. I know there's a number of people that are out there still waiting for their submissions to return. So anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Be on the lookout for part 2. And if there are any cards that you're interested in, check out my eBay store. Again, I'll leave the link in the description. It is an affiliate link, so full disclosure, there is a commission that I get, helps me out, helps the channel out. If you decide to use that, no obligation. Definitely don't feel like you need to do that. Anyway, guys, I'm Pokemon Classics. Thanks for sticking around and watching. And remember, the classics never go out of style. We'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.